Law 28. Enter action with boldness. If you're unsure of a course of action, do not attempt it. Your doubts and hesitations will infect your execution. Timidity is dangerous. Better to enter with boldness. Any mistakes you commit through audacity are easily corrected with more audacity. Everyone admires the bold. No one honors the timid. Vice Admiral Lord Nelson had been through it all, but none of his achievements prepared him for the problems he faced from his own colleagues in the British Navy as they prepared to go to war against Denmark in February 1801. Nelson, England's most glorious war hero, was the obvious choice to lead the fleet. Instead, the Admiralty chose Sir Hyde Parker, with Nelson his second in command. The fiery Nelson was prone to lose his cool. Sir Hyde Parker was an older, more stable, even-tempered man who would do the job and nothing more. Nelson swallowed his pride and took the assignment, but he saw trouble ahead. He knew that time was of the essence. The faster the navy sailed, the less chance the Danes would have to build up their defences. The ships were ready to sail, but Parker's motto was everything in good order. It wasn't his style to hurry. Nelson hated his casualness and burned for action. He reviewed intelligence reports, studied maps, and came up with a detailed plan for fighting the Danes. He wrote to Parker, urging him to seize the initiative. Parker ignored him. At last, on March 11th, the British fleet set sail. According to intelligence reports, Parker explained, the Danes had prepared elaborate defences for Copenhagen. Boats anchored in the harbour, forts to the north and south, and mobile artillery batteries could blast the British out of the water. How to fight this artillery without terrible losses? Also, pilots who knew the waters around Copenhagen reported that they were treacherous, places of sandbag and tricky winds. Navigating these dangers under bombardment would be harrowing. With all these difficulties, perhaps it was best to wait for the Danes to leave the harbour. Nelson struggled to control himself. Finally, he let loose, pacing the room. No war, he said, had ever been won by waiting. The Danish defences looked formidable to those who are children at war, but he had worked out a strategy weeks earlier. He would attack from the south, the easier approach, while Parker and the reserve forces would stay to the city's north. Nelson would use his mobility to take out the Danish guns. He had studied the maps. Sandbars were no threat. As for the wind, aggressive action was more important than fretting over wind. Nelson's speech energized Parker's captains. He was by far the most successful leader, and his confidence was catching. Even Sir Parker was impressed, and the plan was approved. The next morning, Nelson's line of ships advanced on Copenhagen, and the battle began. The Danish guns, firing at the British at close range, took a fierce toll. Nelson paced the deck of his flagship, the HMS Elephant, urging his men on. He was in an excited, almost ecstatic state. A shot through the mainmast nearly hit him. Parker followed the battle from his position to the north. He now regretted agreeing to Nelson's plan. He was responsible for the campaign, and a defeat here would ruin his career. After 4 hours of back and forth bombardment, he had seen enough. The fleet had taken a beating and had gained no advantage. Nelson never knew when to quit. Parker decided it was time to hoist signal flag 39, the order to withdraw. On board the Elephant, a lieutenant told Nelson about the signal. The Vice Admiral ignored it, continuing to attack the Danish defences. He eventually called to an officer. Is number 16 still hoisted? Number 16 was his own flag. It meant engage the enemy more closely. The officer confirmed that the flag was still flying. Mind you, keep it so, Nelson told him. Soon the Danish defences started to crack. Some of the ships anchored in the harbour surrendered, and the firing of the guns began to slow. Less than an hour after Parker signalled to stop the battle, the Danes surrendered. The next day, Parker congratulated Nelson on the victory. He did not mention his subordinates' disobedience. He was hoping the whole affair, including his own lack of courage, would be quietly forgotten. Interpretation. When the Admiralty put its faith in Sir Hyde, it made a classical military error. It entrusted the waging of a war to a man who was careful and methodical. Such men may seem calm, even strong in times of peace, but their self-control often hides weakness. The reason they think things so carefully is that they are terrified of making a mistake and of what that might mean for them in their career. This doesn't come out until they are tested in battle. Suddenly they cannot make a decision. They see problems everywhere and defeat in the smallest setback. They hang back, not out of patience but out of fear. Often these moments of hesitation spell their doom. Nelson operated according to the opposite principle. Slight of build, with a delicate constitution, he compensated for his physical weakness with fierce determination. The moment he entered battle, he ratcheted up his aggressive impulses. Where other sea lords worried about casualties, the wind, changes in the enemy's formation, he concentrated on his plan. Before battle, he strategized and studied his opponent, but once the engagement began, hesitation and carefulness were dropped. Our greatest weakness is losing heart, doubting ourselves, becoming unnecessarily cautious. Being more careful is not what we need. That is just a screen for our fear of conflict and of making a mistake. What we need is double the resolve, an intensification of confidence. In moments of turmoil and trouble, you must force yourself to be more determined. Call up the aggressive energy you need to overcome caution and inertia. Any mistakes you make, you can rectify with more energetic action still. Save your carefulness for the hours of preparation, but once the fighting begins, empty your mind of doubts. Ignore those who complain at any setback and call for retreat. Momentum will carry you through. 4 reasons boldness is effective. The first one, lions circle the hesitant prey. In a first encounter, when you demonstrate your willingness to compromise, back down and retreat, you bring out the lion even in people who are not necessarily bloodthirsty. Everything depends on perception, and once you are seen as the kind of person who quickly goes on the defensive, who is willing to negotiate and be amendable, you will be pushed around without mercy. The second reason, boldness strikes fear. Fear creates authority. The bold move makes you seem larger and more powerful than you are. If it comes suddenly, with the stealth and swiftness of a snake, it inspires that much more fear. A bold act requires a high degree of confidence. People who are the targets of an audacious act, or who witness it, cannot help but believe that such confidence is real and justified. They respond instinctively by backing up, by getting out of the way, or by following the confident person. The third reason, going halfway with a half heart, digs the deeper grave. If you enter an action with less than total confidence, you set up obstacles in your own path. When a problem arises, you will grow confused, seeing options where there are none, and inadvertently creating more problems still. Most of us are timid. We want to avoid tension and conflict, and we want to be liked by all. We may contemplate the bold action, but we rarely bring it to life. We are terrified of the consequences, of what others might think of us, of the hostility we will stir up if we dare go beyond our usual place. You must practice and develop your boldness. You will often find uses for it. The best place to begin is often the delicate world of negotiation, particularly in those discussions in which you are asked to set your own price. How often do we put ourselves down by asking for too little? Bold demands work better than starting off with piecemeal concessions and trying to meet the other person halfway. Set your value high and then set it higher. Understand, if boldness is not natural, neither is timidity. It is an acquired habit, picked up out of a desire to avoid conflict. If timidity has taken hold of you, then root it out. Your fears of the consequences of a bold action are way out of proportion to reality, and in fact the consequences of timidity are worse. Your value is lowered, and you create a self-fulfilling cycle of doubt and disaster. Remember, it is up to you to set your own price. Ask for less, and that is just what you will get. Ask for more, however, and you send a signal that you are worth a king's ransom. Even those who turn you down respect you for your confidence. Not only will you begin to ask more of others, but you will begin to ask more from yourself. Your sense of who you are will determine your actions and what you end up getting in life. If you see your reach as limited, that you are mostly helpless in the face of so many difficulties, that it is best to keep your ambitions low, then you will receive the little that you expect. Knowing this dynamic, you must train yourself for the opposite. Ask for more, aim high, and believe that you are destined for something great. Your sense of self-worth comes from you alone. With a rising confidence in your abilities, you will take risks that will increase your chances of success. People follow those who know where they are going, so cultivate an air of certainty and boldness. Reversal. Boldness should never be the strategy behind all your actions. It is a tactical instrument to be used at the right moment. To go through life armed only with audacity would be tiring and also fatal. You would offend too many people, as is proven by those who cannot control their boldness. Timidity has no place in the realm of power. You will often benefit, however, by being able to feign it. At that point, of course, it is no longer timidity, but an offensive weapon. You are luring people in with your show of shyness, all the better to pounce on them boldly later. Cautiously plan ahead as best as you can. See far and wide, but when it comes time to move, move.